That's what he put on the front of his book, right there. This book, Leaves of Grass, this is the image that I need to get. There we go. That's, what do you think about this guy? What does he look like?
Arrogant.
Arrogant. All right, arrogant. What?
Farmer.
Farmer? An arrogant farmer. Sure, that works. What did you say?
Two things. Looks arrogant.
Okay, he looks arrogant. You agree?
Looks like a monkey tamer.
Somehow I could see a little monkey sitting on his shoulder. Okay. However, to the folks online, he just hasn't read, and so he keeps saying things that are weird. So no. What is this? What is he dressed like? Now he worked as a printer, and he chose this picture to go on the front part of his to go on the front page of his book, of this book. If you had written a book, is this how you would dress for your cover photo?
No.
Why not?
He looked presentable. Yeah.
So he doesn't look presentable.
He
Why
looks
not?
like he doesn't really like care.
Okay, he
tucked his shirt in at least.
did tuck his shirt in. Yeah.
He didn't iron it, though.
He's got a nice little pose.
What's his pose? What does that pose say?
I feel like that's his personality.
What?
I feel like that's his personality in the picture.
Well, okay, describe that personality.
Laid back and not doesn't really care what other people think about him.
Laid back, doesn't care what other people think. There is some arrogance there, and it's rather ragged, right? I mean, he's just kind of everyman. He's got his hat on. It's a little to the side. I mean, he's just kind of like everyman, right? I mean, he could look like a farmer. He's like an arrogant farmer. And that's exactly where we are at this point. We are now in America. Remember, Melville is American. Okay? Melville is American. This is Walt Whitman. He is also American, right? He was born in 1819, and he served as a nurse in the Civil War. He was from the North, and so he served as a nurse, which sounds, you're going, he's a nurse? But at that time, you had male nurses for the troops, okay? Women who were nurses, kind of, you're going, they're not just nurses at that time for the war troops. Okay. So he had seen a lot of, I mean, there's a lot going on in America at this time. You've got the expansion into the West. You have the question of what does it mean to be an American? What does it mean to be a human being, right? I mean, in the South, I mean, how was slavery justified? It was this idea that the slaves were not fully human, right? So Whitman's looking at this and he's saying, what does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be a democracy? What does it mean to be a country where you've got the Wild West. You can go explore. And what does America contain at this time? He is a poet of democracy. That is, who said romantic? You said romantic, didn't you? He's very romantic, and he's realist. It's weird, because it's both. That romantic spirit that you get with Wordsworth and Coleridge and that group, they're writing about the time of the French Revolution with equality, fraternity, and democracy, right? Liberty, equality, fraternity, right? So you've got democracy that's growing up at this time, the rights of man, that sort of thing. Well, yeah, the rights of man, the ship. So we've got that here with Walt Whitman also. And he says, and it sounds really arrogant, I celebrate myself and sing myself, and what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. Now at first that sounds so arrogant and self-centered, right? It's like, I own everything. My ideas are the right ones. But then we keep on going through this, and he says in Canto 16, I mean, we've just got little excerpts, and honestly, eventually, it just, to me, it becomes kind of, he's not my favorite poet in terms of form, but what he does, I mean, Europe just thinks he's brilliant. The Europeans think he's brilliant, and he changed the face of poetry forever. He says in Canto 16, I am of old and young, of the foolish as much as the wise, regardless of others, ever regardful of others, maternal as well as paternal, a child as well as a man, stuffed with the stuff that is coarse, stuffed with the stuff that is fine. One of the nation of many nations, the smallest the same and the largest the same. What does he include? What? What? Everything. Why? Where does he live?
Everywhere.
Yeah, everywhere. He's a southerner as soon as a northerner. A Yankee, a Kentuckian, Elkhorn, Louisianian, Georgian, Hoosier, Badger, Buckeye, Canadian, Newfoundland. He talks about Vermont, Maine, Texas, California, Northwesterners. I mean, he just includes everything. Right? What's included in America, theoretically? What kind of people live here? All kinds. What?
We're a melting pot.
It's the melting pot, yes. Although when you think about this, does he just say, well, he does say it's all in me, but he makes a point of it's not all melted yet, right? Because he's got southerner, northerner, and then he's got Kentucky, Louisiana, Georgia. He names the places because if it's a melting pot, everything kind of mushes together and you don't get any identity, right? You don't want it, then you wouldn't have, it would all be flat, right? Because you wouldn't have mountains and beaches and valleys and plains and all this. He mentions everything to celebrate it all. And so he's kind of talking about, I mean, he is arrogant because he says, in 24, Walt Whitman, a cosmos. Cosmos is like the whole universal order. Walt Whitman, a cosmos of Manhattan, the sun. I mean, think about Manhattan, New York. You've got the Statue of Liberty. You've got everybody, that's where immigrants come through so much. So you've got Manhattan, you've got every kind of culture in New York. And so he's celebrating that. 21, he says, Canto 21, the fourth line, sorry. I am the poet of the woman, the same as the man. And I say it is as great to be a woman as to be a man. And if you're thinking, okay, women's rights, not so much going on then. Actually, it was. I mean, he's writing it at about the same time that Melville's writing and Hawthorne. If you go to Concord, Massachusetts, you've got, these people live all in the same neighborhood. You've got Hawthorne, Thoreau, and Emerson all live in this little area of Concord. Sometimes they swap houses around and they live on the same street and stuff. And also Louisa May Alcott, Bronson Alcott, lived next door to, I think it's Emerson, or Hawthorne. I think it was Emerson for a while and then Hawthorne lived there. But anyhow, the Alcott, do y'all know who Louisa May Alcott is?
Yes.
Yes. What did she write?
I don't remember.
Oh,
I definitely recognize
have y'all read Little Women?
it. Yes.
You do know Little Women, right? Okay. How many people have read or seen the movie Little Women? Okay, good. At this time, they're dealing with women's rights to vote and like Louisa May Alcott. You've seen what? Seen what?
I've seen parts of the musical too.
There's a musical of Little Women?
It's really good.
Oh my, that's interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. So anyhow, there's that. It is an issue at this point whether or not women can vote and that sort of thing. So it's this celebration of the rights of all people, and he's pushing for that and celebrating that. Now he says, and I mean, if you remember, we have the invocation of the muse at the beginning of an epic poem. You remember that? He's saying this is, I mean, to some extent, I think he's imitating the epic, but changing it. What are you supposed to invoke at the beginning of an epic poem? The muse, the god is supposed to come down and tell you. He doesn't say, muse, sing this. His first line is, I celebrate myself and sing myself. He is telling his own story. That's very romantic. It's a hugely romantic vision. I'm telling my story. My story is the story of America. And so it is, he's singing it, it's his personal vision, it's what he sees, what he experiences. And he is arrogant in doing it, because he's saying this is like the epic poem for America, democracy, that sort of thing. And so it is kind of arrogant in the epicness of it, but at the same time, he's saying, this is for you too. Because it's all about the South and the North and women and men and old and young. He embraces all of that. When he was alive, he actually had very wealthy friends and scholarly friends and that sort of thing. He also hung out with like prisoners and people who were not the high society people. I mean, he reached into all different aspects of society. So he embraces that in his life as well as in the poetry. And I think that's why, I mean, he's kind of saying, yeah, I'm every man. But he's also kind of being bold in doing that, because he does change the face of poetry. I mean, we don't get iambic pentameter here. There are no heroic couplets. It's not form. It's not structure. Instead, it's embrace everybody. And it is chaotic. And it is contradictory. It's just kind of everything. That's why I said don't worry about understanding it. It's just this, it's almost a melting pot, but he didn't heat it up very much. He wants to keep the stuff the same. Okay. All right. And I'll see you on Monday. Monday we will cover Dickinson. Read as much of Dickinson, especially 1129. Poem 1129. Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. And I'll give bonus points to anyone who will sing some of the poems to either the theme song of Gilligan's Island, or the Yellow Rose of Texas, or Amazing Grace. There is no gradient like it.
Will we sing it?
If you'll sing it before the class, on the video.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet. I'll do all three.